Hello and welcome to the Bpositive Bloodstream, a podcast providing insights, stories and experiences from and for all those affected by acute leukemia and beyond. My name is Jonjo Rooney and I'm the founder of Bpositive and the host of the Bloodstream. So why a podcast? Well, the one thing I lacked when I was diagnosed with leukemia back in 2006 was hearing from people who knew what it was like to embark on a similar journey to myself. It's my hope that by sharing inspiring interviews from people who've either been affected firsthand in some way by blood cancer or who've had similar experiences that others can resonate with, then we can help support those in need. I want these podcasts to provide help, inspiration and belief to all people. Bpositive is both my blood group and my adopted mantra that I held throughout my treatment. I hope you enjoy our interviews, and if you wish to get in touch with us, then please do so by emailing us at info@bpositive.org.uk, or you can find us on Twitter at b_positive_org. In this edition, I wanted to share an anecdote, I suppose, and recap a story that is actually quite humorous, as it turned out. I didn't realise at the time, but it certainly captures a subject that I think is quite sensitive for people who've been affected by leukemia or indeed a lot of cancers, and that's fertility. So for the next few minutes, I think I'll just share my experience with this. Now, no sooner had I been told I had leukemia, which I'm sure people who've listened to the podcast before will be aware of, or perhaps you're not aware of, but I was, okay, I should start from the start. I was 23 and I was diagnosed with leukemia. Now, no sooner had it felt like no sooner had I been told that damning news on that Saturday evening, that I think a day or so later, I was really made aware of the potential impact that certainly the treatment I was about to have over the next couple of years was going to have on my chances of having children, and certainly my levels of fertility. Now, I was told that almost certainly with the chemotherapy I was about to have, it's very, very, very likely that I would be made infertile, because that's what happens, because cancer has obviously affects every part. Certainly a blood cancer affects every part of your body, and the chemotherapy has to kill every part of your body naturally to ensure that all your blood and bone marrow is evaporated from all the leukemic cells. So in order to do that, I had to blast away everything. Now that includes everything that makes you fertile. So it was a bit of a science lesson for myself, hearing just how hard hitting this was going to be on my chances of fertility. Now look, I was 23 at the time, and it must have been 24, 36 hours after being told that I was effectively days away from dying, and that I was suffering from acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and I was in a very bad way. I knew treatment had to start straight away. My focus was purely on myself, and certainly not on having children. Now, again, being at 23, I hadn't made that life plan at all. I hadn't thought that far ahead, naturally, perhaps. So I kind of felt, look, do you know what? And I've actually since spoke to a lot of patients who felt differently to how I did. Some people found being told that, but certainly been told that they're no longer fertile, or they're unlikely to have children naturally, that they found they took that news harder than the actual diagnosis. For me, I didn't. I think I knew I was really up against it with the numbers that I'd been told of my white blood cell count. I knew I had to fight tooth and nail to get myself through this. So my attention certainly weren't with starting a family. But look, I absolutely knew that there'll be one day I want to do that, and that's absolutely how I feel now. But it was quite an eye-opener to be told your chances of having children are significantly reduced with the treatment you're about to have. But again, I wasn't blasé with it, but it wasn't something that concerned me as much as when I was diagnosed. I even remember making light of it about about making one or two jokes just to kind of lighten the mood, but that perhaps is my personality anyway. But yeah, so it wasn't quite a thunderbolt, but it was certainly something that I had to consider. Now, I was asking more questions about what this entailed, because I was due to start treatment straight away due to the severity of my case and how poorly, I suppose, I presented with my tremendously high white blood cell count. And that meant we had to get moving with chemotherapy. I was told that chemotherapy significantly reduces your chance of being fertile, and if you have radiotherapy, that pretty much rubber stamps that. Now I ended up buying the full ticket with leukemia, so I had both by way of my bone marrow transplant, which meant I had to have total body radiation, which was radiotherapy all over my body. So it was important at the very, very start, and I'm talking the first day or so after being diagnosed, I was told in no uncertain terms that we better get this, we better get some sperm stored in order to protect your fertility. There's lots of kids in my family. There's been lots of reproduction over the years. That's my brother and sister, and my dad was one of 10. His dad was one of 21, bizarrely. My brother's got 4 kids. My sister got 3 kids. There's loads of kids in the family. I think the numbers look good, but I certainly wasn't so concerned with that at the time. I had more pressing matters to hand. I was told that the following morning, after I'd been transferred to Worcester, I was told that there was going to be a taxi driver turn up to collect my sperm. So I had to, first thing in the morning, I had to donate some into a small cup. Now, I think I made a few jokes about that. Those sort of things normally don't trouble me, but the clinical nurse specialist was great, actually. I called her Dottie Becky. I think there was another Becky there, so she had a Dottie uniform on. I was speaking to Becky, and again I was kind of lightening the mood a bit, but in all seriousness, she came and just ran through the details and said, listen, we need to get some sperm stored and sent over to Birmingham Women's Hospital, where ironically I was born, as it turned out, but I was told that we had to do that. We had to move straight away because treatment needed to start. So off went Becky to go and grab some adult magazines, I think it's the best term for them, that were apparently her ex-boyfriends. But anyway, Becky brought in some, looked unused to me, magazines, and she brought them into the room. She said, listen, use this in the morning, this will help. I think I remember saying, look, videos usually work better than me, but I'm not sure. There certainly wasn't a video rental service at the hospital, so I had to make do. But Becky gave me the magazines, and after being given all the information, having to once again sign my life away with consent forms and all these type of things, I was really left to my own devices to go to sleep and get up early the next morning and try and get this done. Now, it was when I went to sleep, I certainly tried to go to sleep, I think the severity of it, or certainly the importance of what I needed to do before starting treatment, probably hit home. I didn't have a good night's sleep at all. I was particularly restless. And this was on my mind a lot more than I sort of gave credit for. Look, I certainly wasn't wiping it away. In fact, I thought I knew I wanted to have children one day, but I guess I was. I guess the reality hadn't really sunk in that I've got one. Pardon the pun. I've got one shot at this. So I really felt that during that night's sleep that I was really kind of struggling to comprehend it all. But anyway, I did manage to get to sleep, and I woke up particularly early. Listen, Becky, the clinical nurse specialist, had told me, look, all the nurses, all the staff will be told not to disturb you, so you won't have any interruptions. So don't worry about that. You can just crack on. And the taxi driver's due to arrive at the hospital from Birmingham at about 10 a.m. So let's get it done by then. I thought, great. So I'll get up at 7 o'clock, plenty of time, no problem. So once you get woken up and have your bloods done and everything, after that I was left alone, and so I began. I had the magazines. One was called Pirate. I think one was called Razzle. It was quite a strange situation, but the magazines were there. They were out, and I had the blinds shut in my room, and I was left to my own devices. So there I was in a controlled temperature room, quite a warm room, with my trousers around my ankle, topless, and I started. I tried to start, and again, I don't know if it was because the weight of expectation was on my mind or the importance of it, but I really struggled. I really, I was building up a sweat just trying to get anything going. It was really difficult, and look, the magazines just weren't doing the job at all. I was having absolutely no success. I think I had some kind of, after about, it felt like about an hour or so, I felt like I was having some kind of progression. But what actually happened was, now I'm not sure if you're familiar, but in the beds we have in these isolated rooms, you get a little bed button that's sat behind your bed. Now, me going to sleep at night in the first day or so of hospital, I was so worried that I would suddenly need to call a nurse that I put that bed button down by my side. Now, I must have forgotten this because it must have slipped under the sheets, because as I'm in my full glory trying to get some momentum up, suddenly the door burst open, which only happens when you call a nurse. And the Zimbabwe nurse, Charity, burst straight in, saw what I was doing in all my glory, looked straight at me and just said, "Don't worry about that." I mean, I was absolutely shocked. I was like, "What are you doing here? What on earth's happened here? Please God, how's this happened?" I looked up and I could see my my bed button light was activated, which meant I'd called the nurse. So I'd actually asked Charity in on this, which I'm sure my girlfriend at the time would have been pleased about. Charity certainly wasn't pleased about it. But she came in and was an utter professional and just came in, switched the bed button off and said, "No, as you were," and walked out. Now, due to the severity of the situation, I didn't have any time to be embarrassed. I didn't have any opportunity. It was just one thing after another. I'd had 48 hours of had my world turned upside down in a lot of turmoil, meeting after meeting, so something like this certainly wasn't going to jar me at this stage. I'd been dealt worse news and been put in different situations, more difficult situations than this. So I just carried on trying, but I was having no luck at all. And I was really starting to stress. I was sweating profusely. The magazine was all in tatters. I mean, God knows what they must have thought when they finally got it back, but I was in quite a state of disarray. But anyway, I felt like I was having a little bit of joy. I felt like, and there was a semblance of progression there. Bed button was completely stored away. There was no chance of that. I wasn't calling anyone else. This was absolutely me in full flow. At least what I thought was full flow. But it really wasn't. It wasn't anywhere near previous capabilities, or certainly my own standards. I was absolutely struggling with this. And then something else happened. The door burst open, and then the Down syndrome cleaner, John, just came in very casually, just mopping the floor, coming in, sweeping the floor, I think he was. There I was again, in all my glory, pretty much naked. And John just looked at me and just goes, "Oh, don't worry about that," and just carried on sweeping. And I was yelling, "What are you doing here? What on earth is this guy doing here? Please, God, I haven't done the bed button." He just walked in. Apparently the nurses hadn't briefed the auxiliary nurses and the cleaners and things on the plan for the day. I'm not sure how they briefed everyone, but I'm sure they would have made it known not to disturb. But anyway, no signs were put up. So John casually walked out, didn't bat an eyelid. So this was round two. I was just like, oh my God, come on, this can't be happening to me. I heard the nurses shout down the corridor, "John, get out of there." I assume they meant him, not me. But they ran, got the cleaner out, and started putting all manner of post-its on the front of the door, which must have said, "Do not disturb." I was in bits. I mean, the guy from Birmingham I'd been told had been sent home. I was told not to worry, not to let that stress me, because in all seriousness, I think it was stressing me. I think it was getting on top of me. I think I was really struggling to get across the finish line with this, because the weight of the importance of it all was probably sat on my shoulders. Now I carried on, as you do. We're probably talking 3 hours now, and it is not getting any better. There's no progression here at all. I'm trying and trying and trying again. And listen, I know there's no more interruptions, so I've had to. I know that's as bad as it can get. But just as I'm feeling like I've had the most progression, I feel like I'm in the best place I've been all morning. I've got a little window to the right of my bed in my little isolated room in Worcester Royal, a tiny little window, and just as I'm kind of having some kind of progress, I remember describing it as like playing snooker with a piece of rope. There was nothing happening there. But then all of a sudden, window cleaner splashed right against the window, just saw his chamois massaging, caressing the window in my room in a romantic way. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. And I turned around and just thought, you know, third time lucky, no chance. This is absolutely unbelievable. I'm getting interrupted by window cleaner. I've had Charity, the nurse, I've had John the Down syndrome cleaner. This is not happening at all. I was in absolute bits. I called the nurses in after pulling up my trousers. I called the nurses in and just said, listen, I can't do this. I cannot do this at all. I've had interruption after interruption. My own window's getting a massage, getting a better treatment. I said, I'm having no luck here. It's really not going to happen at all. Then they came up with the ingenious idea to call up my ex-girlfriend, and she came over, and I don't know, a good 12 seconds later, we ended up getting it. We crossed the finish line. We got there. But it's, but I mean, that's one of my favourite stories from hospital, if that's the right term. Now, throughout all of this, it's quite a funny story, but throughout all of this, I didn't see any funny side to it. I was distressed. I think I was in tears at one point. I really felt like I was struggling through all of this, and I think the importance and the severity of it all really did hit home to me. It wasn't until I was relaying that story to my dad later that he was in fits of laughter, and that he decided to go and tell the completely stoic and very straight-faced Dr. Shafiq, who was my consultant, an absolute guy. You put your life in his hands and nothing could rock him. He was very assured, very professional at all times. My dad had him with his glasses off, sat down in tears of laughter about this. I had no idea that this story would have caused such a ripple around the whole ward, and it was the talk of the town. Everyone was joking about it, and I absolutely see the funny side of it now. But to bring it back to something a little more seriousness, it was a serious issue, and I'm certainly not in any way diluting the importance of or the sensitivity around this issue, because it does hit people hard. There may have been a funny story out of it at my end, but to be honest, I was still very fortunate. I was in a position where I could donate my sperm and get my sperm stored for future use potentially. Not every person is in that position. I've spoken to patients who had to start treatment way before that, who were young kids, who would never get that opportunity, and that's very tough to hear. And as I said earlier, I think there are some people who take that news worse than they did the diagnosis, because it's having a huge part of their life taken away from them. Now, your life is always compromised when you've been dealt the hand of having any kind of cancer, but in my experience, having leukemia, and I can totally understand if people feel that that opportunity's been taken away from them when they've not been in a position to store some. So I am very grateful that I was given that opportunity to store it. It provides a great story for any kind of parties, or when you're late at night at a ski chalet just struggling for things to talk about. I can always bring that one in. I can always hold a room with that story. But I do feel that more and more people should be talking about fertility, and certainly not ashamed to discuss subjects of this nature, because it is a reality of people who are affected by cancer and who have to undergo chemotherapy. It's a sensitive issue, of course, for men, but certainly for women as well. And obviously the process of storing their eggs and stuff is absolutely not as straightforward as doing so with sperm. So I hope there is increasingly more awareness and more empowerment for people to talk about this. Listen, there's many stories of people who go on to have kids and live their lives completely normal, and that's absolutely what I hope to do. I know I've got a slightly trickier route. I'm someone, to be honest, who struggles over deciding what to eat in a restaurant, so knowing I have to know the exact moment I want to defrost my sperm and get that going is going to be quite the day. But I think I'm actually better at handling the big decisions than perhaps I was when I was diagnosed 11 years ago. But yeah, so I wanted to share that little anecdote and hopefully bring to you other anecdotes from myself and other people to help share stories that bite-sized stories about things that help contribute to their story, and that might well bring some awareness and help to other people that are in need. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.